Hi, welcome to the No Ordinary Woman Chat Show. I'm your host, Miss Kazamak, and I'm joined here with my beautiful co-host,
Janelle Raver, in the building.
Yes, and guys, you are in for a treat. We have an amazing, phenomenal, No Ordinary man with us right now. But before we move into who we've got on the show, Janelle, how's your week been, girl?
My week's been good, Kaz. Thank you very much. I was at an event last night, working at an event, Masters of Empowerment, where the one and only Muta Baruka and also Dr. Umar Johnson gave some very inspirational speeches. It was packed out, packed house, and yeah, went there and came away feeling very inspired. Lots of knowledge imparted. So, knowledge is the key. So yeah,
Definitely. And was Muta barefoot?
he was barefoot actually. I've heard lots of stories about him. He's barefoot, and when I've seen him before and he's barefoot, but I struggle to believe the fact that he's always barefoot. But I asked him, and yes, he's always barefooted.
Wow.
Everywhere he goes. I must say his feet look pretty good.
Must have a personal person doing his pedicure at all times.
Yeah, I didn't ask that question, but you never know. Probably travels with his pedicurist everywhere he goes.
Okay, cool. Well, my week has been okay. It's been all right. And I went to a fitness rave. It was called a Night Shift UK on Thursday. It was 2.5 hours straight, hardcore working out. So instead of raving, we pumped. We did body pump, we done biceps, press ups, we did our burpees, you name it, we did it. And it was absolutely amazing. So do check them out on Instagram. It's called a Night Shift UK. Okay.
On a Thursday night?
On a Thursday night, girl.
And did you work the next day?
I went to work the next day. I must admit, I was absolutely tired.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know how you do it. This woman's amazing, by the way.
So are you, girl.
Oh, thank you.
And again, we have been sponsored with our lovely clothing by Mama Fashion.
Yep.
And she's always looking for new talent who obviously want to get in contact with her. Holler at Chantal because she is absolutely amazing, as you can see. So, Janelle, let's get straight into the show because we've got an awesome gentleman with us right now. His name is Alim Kamara. He's a hip-hop artist, an African storyteller and philanthropist. An inspirational individual, Alim possesses wonderful creativity and motivating nature with amazing ability to captivate an audience through storytelling. I think it's going to do a bit of storytelling here, hopefully. Anyway, Alim spent most of his childhood growing up in Sierra Leone, where storytelling is a huge part of his culture, but we're going to allow him to go a bit more into that, so I'm not going to give too much information there. He's now based in the UK. The tradition of storytelling has remained close to Alim's heart, so much so that he's funded Storie Storie, which is his organisation within the UK. It's a based organisation that travels globally, working with educational and corporate world institutes to inspire individuals through engaging storytelling workshops. So without further ado, let's welcome this amazing, no ordinary man on our set. How are you?
I'm good. Beautiful intro. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We did our best.
Yes.
So, tell us a bit about this storytelling.
But storytelling, I think my first story I just want to speak about is arriving here and there was food. So just thank you for looking after me. There was juice here, there was food. I was like, hey. So yes, I've had warm tea and ginger. I'm comfortable. So yeah, going back to childhood, born in the UK, went to live back home in Sierra Leone, and
what age? What age?
2.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So sent back early. I hadn't even been bad yet.
They shipped you off just in case.
He looks like he's going to be trouble. Let him go. So and that was where I came into contact with the storytelling. So sitting around campfires and having uncles, aunties like sharing stories with us, and how much that just excited my mind for somebody who could not keep still. Storytelling was something that would keep me seated.
Wow, so is there any particular story that is like a memory to you that...
Dear Nancy stories.
Right.
Definitely Dear Nancy stories. So many Nancy stories that I was told when I was young still like I know snippets and parts when it comes to discovering. So when I discover a story, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was told that when I was young. So it helps me to be able to piece certain puzzles together.
And the thing is, nothing's actually been written down, is it?
That's
in terms
right.
of the
That's
story.
right.
So
So
it's really about keeping the memory. So the way it must be described, it must be so in detail for it to just have that impact,
Yeah.
for it to stay in your memory.
Yeah. So in the ancient tradition of the griots, who were the West African storytellers, praise singers, history keepers, wise men, they had to store everything in their head. So these people have like 500 to 1,000 stories maybe that they can just pull out just like that, memorize 10 minutes poetry, or I don't know, 5,000 word poetry like that.
Wow.
That's how powerful. Yeah.
Wow.
But if you've been, and that's the thing, and that's when you look at our young people today, if you train them from early, that's something that's doable.
Definitely.
I mean, the whole storytelling phenomenon, you know, within our culture is really quite special.
Yes.
And something that sadly is kind of fading, especially as we've moved into the Western world. I mean, we know the stories of Anansi, right? You would have heard the stories of Anansi at school, probably within your home. You know, it's a big part of African Caribbean culture.
Yeah.
But that tradition being passed on and on is slowly fading away.
Yes.
So to see a young person like yourself who's held on to that tradition, but not only held on to it, you've created a business out of it, and you want to encourage others to do that. I think it's very special and really quite amazing. So, you know, we know you spoke about sitting around the campfire, and you know, I could just imagine, I can just picture that scene, right?
Yeah.
You know, with the fire crackling and the, you know, kind of setting the scene with these elders telling stories.
Yeah.
But as a child, we all love a good story, right? Whether it's told, whether you read it. But what was it really about the storytelling that stayed with you so much so that now this is what you do for your living, for life, really?
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because when I came back to the UK, I couldn't see storytelling, but I found storytelling in hip hop. So it's like hip hop is like the griots are the original rappers and singers. That's how I look at it in my head. So when I came to the UK and I got introduced to hip hop, it was like, oh, this is a different version of storytelling. And so then from there, that's when what I wanted to hear in hip hop, I would hear on the poetry circuit where they did spoken word.
Yeah.
So then I would get on the mic and drop verses as I started rapping. So I wasn't doing storytelling anymore. So I would be rapping, and then people would see me and be like, "You're that poet." And I'm like, no, I'm a rapper. I'm not. don't give me that title, poet. I'm a rapper. And then when I went to uni, my lecturer, Maggie Butt, she knew that I did performances. And then in the last year, she suggested that I do a storytelling module. When I went to do the storytelling module, they asked us to do a traditional story. Of course, I chose Anansi. But nobody in my class had heard of Anansi.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. So I was offended, just like how you reacted like that. So I was like, what do you mean? And it just came to the realization that, yeah, Daffy Duck, Mickey Mouse were replacing those stories. Those were the new stories being told. Like even when you look at Bugs Bunny comes from a character known as Brer Rabbit. Brer Rabbit, the trickster, yes. Even Anansi, when you look at Anansi and you look at Spider-Man, you look at Spider-Man and Anansi's half man can turn into a spider. All of a sudden you have the Spider-Man that,
So it's like they personalize it for their own selves, for their own culture. Anyway.
But also took the personality out of it, because now you're not listening to a real person telling a real story, or even a fictional story. You're watching a screen, you know, and that kind of, it's taken the luster out of storytelling. So as much as I loved a good cartoon when I was a kid, to sit down and hear somebody tell a story, and like in primary school we used to have that, you know, go to the library and somebody would actually tell a story, or we'd have story time, you know, in the corner with your teacher, right? And I used to love that, like you get this warm fuzzy feeling. So yeah, you know, it's great that it's
I used to do with storytelling myself.
Okay.
Yeah. When I was young, no, seriously. But my storytelling was called game. So basically, I used my fingers, and with my siblings and my cousins, in a night I will do like episodes, but using characters from books I've read and things like that. So even right up to just about a couple of years ago, my cousin was like, oh my gosh, remember you used to do games? I was like, wow, she really remembers, do you know what I mean, kind of thing. So it is very important with the storytelling, you know, the impact it has on
Definitely,
lives.
it's very, very important. So in terms of the stories you tell,
Yes.
are they folk stories that have been passed down through your tradition and through your upbringing, or are some of them stories that you've made that you tell?
So it's a mixture. So I tell, so if I'm in front of, say, university students, I may tell a biographical story. So I tell like biographical stories, traditional stories, or historical stories. So there's stories that come in different formats. So it depends on my audience. And sometimes people will say to me, oh, what story are you going to do? And I'll be like, before I'm about to go on, that's when I'll decide certain times which story I'm going to deliver to the audience.
So is that you just like assessing the kind of audience that you've got before?
Yes,
So it's
yeah.
like doing a gig really, isn't it? Like you're doing an event and you, before you DJ, you kind of like say, right, this is going to be an R&B crowd.
Yes.
Do you know what I
You
mean?
read the
Kind of
crowd.
thing.
Yes.
You read a crowd
Yes.
because obviously sometimes it's easy to miss it and you see people just like sitting down and you think why they're not dancing because you haven't read the crowd properly,
That's
just
true.
saying. You know? So I guess it's similar, it's the same kind of structure. Cool.
Yeah, it is.
So, a birdie tells us, a little bird tells us that you were invited by the First Lady of Sierra Leone to perform for the President. So, of His Excellency's birthday. So, how was that? I mean, tell us about that story.
Let me tell you the story. What happened? So the First Lady, Fatima Bio, she was a Gambian actress. And so I'd met her on the circuit, and at one point she'd even, when I was presented with an award, she was the one who gave me the award. And one day she calls me up and she says, Alim, my husband is, you know, running for presidency. Would you come and do a performance at our event as we're trying to raise awareness for, and I was like, yeah, cool. We even had a hustle and banter about how much she was going to pay me and all of that. I was like, look, man, stop trying to bump me. So I'm like, you don't need to start paying me what I'm worth. So I went and done the event and it went really well.
Yeah.
And they were seated at the table behind me. And then she leaned over and she whispered, she was like, pray that my husband wins so I can bring Alim Kamara to Sierra Leone. So I was like, yeah, cool, good luck. So one day I'm sitting down and I hear, Mr. Marabio has become the president of Sierra Leone.
Oh, wow.
My chicken back full. You serious? So I literally call up Fatima and I'm like, congratulations. She's still on the same WhatsApp number. So I was like, what's that? So I call her up and I'm like, congratulations, like well done and everything. She's like, thank you. And she says, are you coming to Sierra Leone for the inauguration? And then I went, if my sister is inviting me, I'm coming. And then of course she invited me and got over there. And of course, as you do, you get into the airport, the African airport, and you're there waiting the long queue. And then all of a sudden I see one army man coming towards me. I'm like, he's walking too much in my direction. He's like, are you Alim Kamara? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, come with me, I'm the First Lady. I'm like, let's go. I pick up my bags and then I leave the queue. And some people start getting vexed in the queue. But obviously he can't say who he is because of how he's dressed and whatnot. So I just keep on walking. I can hear people cuss, look at this African corruption. And usually I'd have probably been one cussing as well, but I was like, let's just go. And yeah, so then literally she came and actually met us at the where the ferry bank is and everything, greeted us. And then she was like, yeah, so you'll be doing the inauguration, and did the inauguration. Then the president's birthday was the next day. So I'm seated in the crowd and I see her talking to the MC, and she points in my direction. And he comes over and he's like, yeah, First Lady wants you to perform. I'm like, hey, you not behave, man. And it's like MPs and ministers.
Wow.
So I'm literally like gone upstairs. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Before he introduces me, he even says, this gentleman here is going to be working with the First Lady to help the youth of Sierra Leone.
Wow. Wow. And that's what you do as well, right?
Because she knows my work.
Yeah.
So we'd had a brief discussion about it, but when it was said to the world, I was like, cool, let's do this.
Wow.
That's the story.
So you told the story, you got up on stage, you performed
I performed, yeah.
for the new president of
Yes.
Sierra Leone in front
Yes.
of all of these dignitaries. And also, there was an announcement made that you would be working with the First Lady. How did you feel?
It was when I came back, everything happened so quickly. I almost was just like, what just happened? And I don't think I had a moment to soak it in, because even when we arrived, I was assigned 2 PAs that would look up.
Not one, but 2.
Yeah, but it was all happening so quickly. I didn't have time to digest it. We were in hotel, and then it was a case of like, pick up, go meet, and then we had dinner with them as well. So every day it was literally like, oh, you might be seeing the President and First Lady today. So my movements were limited, and it was like, yo, this life is different.
Yes, you're on your best behavior.
Wow,
Best behavior. But yeah, thank God, man, it was a blessing. So I'm going back end of the month. We're going to be having a meeting to discuss whether I will be in the UK or in Sweden.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you want? Do you want to be UK or Sierra Leone?
What did they say? At Her Majesty's service. So whatever she requires, as long as I'm working to inspire young people, I'm there. So whether it's here or whether it's over there, as long as the work allows me to do what I do best, that's what I'll continue to do.
So tell us a bit more about your work with Storie Storie then. What services does Storie Storie offer, and to who?
Okay, so Storie, and we say it's spelled Storie, because we back home we say story. We don't say story. Yeah, so we say, that's why it's called
Story.
Yes.
Story.
So the idea why it's called Storie Storie is when a storyteller wants to grab the audience's attention, they say story, story, and then they respond and go story. And that's like saying,
Let's try it.
Story, story, story.
Okay.
So that's like saying, do you want a story or do you want a story? And it's like,
You say,
that's
story.
Story, of course. So yeah, that's how that comes. And our thing is to inspire greatness and preserve tradition. So we work in schools and businesses, delivering workshops to inspire people and show them the beauty and culture of African and Black presence in mythology and in reality. And when I say, so for instance, we've had Black History Month going into school and fusing in African storytelling and then teaching the young people about Africa. So when you're like, Africa is a continent, not a country. So let's stop saying we're going to Africa, because when you're going to a country in Europe, you state the country that you're going to. You never say, which allows, if you say you're going to Africa, it means you're boxing it in. And then also that there are 54 countries in Africa, that there are between 1,500 languages and 2,000 languages spoken on the continent of Africa. So when you're sharing this information with young people, it's like, wow. And it allows them to look at Africa and Black in a different way, in a more positive way. So sometimes we will be called in and people are thinking we're going to speak about slavery. It's like, I mentioned slavery is just like a pinch of when you look at our history. So it's about really telling our story, because they say, and I don't remember this quote exactly, but it's something along the lines of, until the lion learns to tell his story, the hunt will always be glorified by the hunter.
Yes.
So we have to tell our story, whether it's mythology or reality, so that the world can see us for who we truly are and what we represent in history and in present society.
So I think that's so key in terms of what you're doing as well, because a lot of us as Black people, we don't know our history, and what we do know is slavery, and it kind of stops there. Do you know what I mean? So what you're doing is so powerful, and you know, we really salute you for what you're doing, and continue to do what you're doing.
Because, sorry, just to add, there's a whole, there's a whole dynamic and generations and generations before slavery in our history,
Definitely.
in the history of, you know, the people of Africa. So yeah, like you said, you know, what you're doing is awesome.
And even there's a, actually, let me tell you a quick story.
Oh, yeah.
Story.
There's a story about truth. So this is one of the things that I've learned when I go in to deliver. Sometimes it's like, it's hard for people to be able to swallow. So there's a story about truth, and it said that truth would go around knocking on people's doors, and everywhere truth went, truth was rejected. Truth was turned away. It was like, we don't want you here, because nobody wants the naked truth. So truth was then outside, cold and hungry, and then parable found truth and took pity on truth, took truth home, fed truth, and then clothed truth in story. So now truth, now clothed in story, knocked on those same people's doors again. And this time they were like, come in, come in. And they sat by the fire and they ate together and shared and laughed.
Wow,
Wow.
that's powerful.
Jeez.
Yeah. Never thought about it like that, but it's so true, isn't it?
Really does make sense.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty amazing. So I hear also that you, well, you spoke a bit about, I've heard a lot about you.
A lot. We've heard.
Yeah, a lot.
Legendary.
All those stories you've been telling, you know, you can't hide. You spoke a bit about kind of what being in the field of hip hop, but tell us more about that, because you are a hip hop artist as well as a storyteller. So tell us a bit about the music side of things.
Let's breathe. So my dad passed away when I was 9, and I went into my shell, and I would get into trouble a lot in school. Like if anybody said anything about my dad, oh my this, you know, like people used to back in the days, like your mom, your dad. Yeah. I would lose it and I would fight. So as a result, obviously it's the case I would get into trouble, and my mom always used to be like, what's the problem? And it's almost like I couldn't explain what was wrong. And I remember listening to NWA, KRS-One, Tupac, and they were just expressing what what they were going through, the pain, the frustration, the celebration. They were just expressing. And then I started off just listening and learning lyrics. It's just some say the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. I say the darker the flesh and the deep. What? I was like, yo. And I thought about how that made me feel listening to that, and how I'd be in front of the mirror with the hairbrush or the comb and just be rapping away after learning the lyrics. And then I got to a point where I would pick up the pen and just try to write 1 or 2 lines, you know, of lyrics, of rhyming. And then I would write lyrics and keep them. And if it came to us, say, for instance, when you're thinking about hip hop, it would have, you know, the parental advisory. My cousin and I, we would go outside the shops and we would beg strangers to buy us like the CDs and we would take that home and we would just be like, yeah.
How old was you?
We must have been about 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you know, hustling like
We were hustling. We just, it's like, there was nothing on TV that represented us.
Yeah.
And hip hop represented us in a way which we just thought, wow. So I used to, you know, love that whole American imagery, the baggy trousers and bandanas and all of that. And once I started writing my own lyrics, I would then start practicing these lyrics, because sometimes you'd buy a single and it would have the instrumental on there, so I would start practicing. Yeah,
I know.
So I'd be practicing my rhymes, and then one day, an older cousin came to my house and he was like, "You rap?" I was like, "I kind of, you know." And he said, "Oh, I know some friends that do this professionally, like they rap." So he's like, "Let me introduce you," and we got introduced to them, and it was like, whoa. So now I'm recording into an actual microphone, as opposed to a mic that I bought from Cash Converters, you know, my £5 microphone.
Cash Converters?
And there's still a few about, you know.
They were teeth, mate.
There's still a few about. So that's how the hip hop started. It was a way for me to take my pain that I couldn't express and jot it down and be able to structure it. And once it was structured, it was like, okay, now it makes sense, and I can give it to the world. But before, I needed time to put the puzzles together to say exactly what I was feeling.
So who was your main influence at the time in terms of the hip hop artist? Who was really kind of like, obviously, you know, they say like, when you listen to music, obviously it has an impact on you in terms of it's like ministering to you. So who was ministering to you at that time? Because obviously
The Roots,
Tupac, right, yeah.
Common, Talib Kweli.
So very conscious.
Yeah, and do you remember Karen White? Superwoman.
Yeah,
She's
of course.
I don't know what it was about that tune. It was just like,
to this day.
I was listening to that the other night, I'm gonna lie.
And Stevie Wonder.
Yes.
And I think with Stevie Wonder, it was a case where I used to watch my mum listening to Stevie Wonder, Sonia Spence as well.
What's Sonia Spence? I need to come on, sing a song.
Wait, I can't remember. Now you put me on the spot. But she's the one who did the song where it was a case where her child was asking her about money, and she breaks down all the things that she's done for her child. Yeah, I can't remember none of her songs.
Okay, we're gonna
get there.
Yeah,
we're putting a link. Yeah, so we're putting the link for this episode. Don't worry about
it.
it.
So there was the hip hop, but then there was also music outside. Yeah. And then we had the traditional artists like Bonnie Mac, rest in peace, as well. So yeah, those artists, and watching my mum dance to these artists where it was just, when she wasn't cussing me, and she'd be listening to these music, and just, she'd be cooking and singing. And I just thought, I love the fact that my mum could just forget all her worries and just be vibing to this. And I was like, is this what music does?
Yeah, the influence.
Do you know what what I was going to say actually is it's not just the music alone. Thinking on a bigger scale, our African heritage and tradition is so powerful and so special. And as a people, you spoke about your frustrations, right? Energy is something that is eternal. And the energy of our ancestors, once we know where to find it and how to tap into it, that releases all of those frustrations. So whether it's through storytelling, whether it's through art, whether it's through becoming successful entrepreneurs, using our talents, whatever it might be, through hip hop, through the lyrics, once you actually feel the power of your ancestors and their energy flowing through your veins and know how to utilize that to release it, that's when the greatness comes out.
No, it's true.
And
another brother who I work with that's part of Storie Storie, Yusuf Jallo, he said his grandma used to tell him, make the people laugh and then feed them. So once they've laughed, fed them a story, because then they're open to receiving that.
Belly full.
So when it comes to, when you look at crump dancing, and you look at traditional African dancing, that expression, when you look at Kazumba and where it all comes from, it's just like, I've been going through a lot and I need to get this energy out. You know, the movements.
Something takes over, doesn't it?
That's it. That's it. You know.
And that's the power of our ancestry.
Definitely. Yes. Okay.
So you spoke about your mum, and this is the No Ordinary Woman Chat Show, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
The question we want to ask you is, which female role model has inspired you the most and why?
Can I tell you in a rap?
Yes, please.
Please.
Story. Story.
On cold nights, you tucked me underneath my sheets. Love the way you smiled when you kissed me on my cheek. Single mother, only God knows why you had to suffer. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you when I was younger. Hearing you crying from my bedroom wall, I couldn't take it, so I never knocked on your door. No matter how many push-ups I did, I still couldn't find the strength to comfort you when it was needed. That was then. This is now. I plan to make you proud. Tears of joy, that's all I want to see from now. Watch your son burst through the grace of clouds, strong, independent, playing a role of two parents. You gave me life. It's because of you I stand present. And although money situation wasn't that pretty, you saw to it that I never once slept hungry. I can never ask for more than you've given me. So mama, you're the only one I die for. Mama, you're the only one I cry for. Smile for me now. No more feeling down. In my eyes, you're the one that should be wearing the crown.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Give thanks.
That was...
No ordinary woman. No ordinary woman.
That was beautiful.
That was really,
wow.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Your mum must be so proud.
Yes. Oh, wow.
But mom is about all the time you're making this boom 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 music, all this boom, boom. And I gave her this track, Mama, and she took it back home. And her and her sisters just sat there listening to it, bawling like just about the song. But then when she would come to my events, and then people would be like, "Oh, this is your son? You should be so proud." And she's like, "Yes, yeah,
Yes, this is my son.
my boom boom music is now so." Yeah.
So your t-shirt.
My t-shirts.
Yes.
Yes.
I am awesome. So is this one of your brands?
Yes, this is the mantra I get the young people to chant when I go into schools. And now when I go into corporate as well. So funnily enough, when I go and deliver into corporate, people ask me like, how do you switch between the two? And I'm like, I don't. How I deliver to the children is how I deliver to the adults, because we all have that child within us. So I literally get everybody to go, I am awesome. And they have to push it out. And you can see sometimes the adults are a little bit like, you know, reserved. And I'm like, listen, I'm not having it. Everyone stand up, I am awesome. And then get them to, yeah, this can be like a defibrillator for when somebody might be feeling down. Imagine you stand in front of the mirror and you're just like, and they say, anything you put after I am, let's think of this word, I am. Anything you associate with that, it has an energy to it.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? You know, when they ask who are you, just tell them I am.
Yes.
So anything you put after that, jeez.
Yeah. Well,
So this is where the I am awesome comes from.
can we just have a, can we show the camera?
It's like
Can we have a
super
little-
This is it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I am
we're
awesome.
We're going to
Love
get
it.
We're gonna get right.
Yeah, it's in the post. It's coming.
Which address?
Royal Mail.
This one.
Oh, okay.
I think it's end of U6.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So we are going to have to wrap up pretty soon, unfortunately. But we have a couple of questions before you go. So the first thing I would like to ask you is, do you have any music coming out or currently out, and where can people find it?
So I have music on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Just look for Alim Kamara. And I am actually going into the back cave. So after I've been doing what I'm doing for a while, I need to retreat and go back into the dungeon and do some new creation. So I will be working on some new stuff for the new year.
Look forward to
Ooh.
that.
Yes.
Right.
And do you have any upcoming events?
So I've just had a whole month of Black History.
Yeah. I've been following you. Dude, I don't know. That I am wholesome. You must be doing that like every hour, because you was making me tired. Like, seriously. I'm like, this guy's in Manchester, Nottingham. You was just everywhere. Yes. And then obviously you're, you know, talking to these young people as well. How many, they were like it felt like as if it was about 150 every time I saw you.
But sometimes like 200 plus children. You know what, I did one which was the whole school. They put them all in the gym, and I had to deliver storytelling.
And what's their feedback like? Like, what energy do you get back from the kids?
The energy is beautiful.
You wanna see
The passion. I did a school. First time I went to this school, and this little black girl, I was getting them to ask questions at the end, and then she put up her hand and she was like, she leaned her head. I could still remember. She went, "You're like a big brother to us." Oh. My heart. I was like, hey, you're going to be a grown man crying here. There's lots of dust in the room. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I mean, what better feedback than that?
That's
you know?
beautiful.
It is.
You should be so proud of
It's a
yourself.
blessing. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, And so I also tell the story of when I speak about, I didn't used to always call myself a storyteller. I used to call myself a motivational speaker, because in my head, a motivational speaker is more likely to be booked than a storyteller. So I was thinking marketing. And then I got invited to go to Argentina and Peru as a storyteller. So I must have did about 20 schools of just storytelling. And it took for that for me to realize, for me to find my identity. Like it was almost like you're just getting called to be an artist. And sometimes, I guess this is something I'll say to anybody watching, just hone in on who you are. You know, that whole, it's not that whole build it and they will come, it's not a myth. The moment I said, I am an artist, I'm a storyteller, I'm a hip hop artist, all of a sudden I've gone internationally more than when I was a motivational speaker. And that's nothing to do, nothing to say there's anything, but it wasn't me. I found my identity. So as you as a motivational speaker, that's your role, that's your lane. The moment I identified with what is in my DNA, what is in my culture, it was like, what took you so long? Yeah.
But it comes back to what you're saying in regards to your t-shirt, I am. You know, it comes back to you actually owning and saying, right, this is who I am. Because, you know, I think we're living in a time where we see like motivational speaker, it seems to be the in thing and everything else. And we just think, okay, this is what I do. But you find your unique selling point, which is uniquely you. You know,
I have a story for that.
You do? Oh,
Story.
Story.
Last story. So a man comes home, sees his neighbor outside and he's looking for something, and he says to him, "Oh, what's wrong?" He says, "Oh, I've lost my keys." So he's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll help you look for them." And they both get down and start looking for these keys. After about 10 minutes, the man gets up and he dusts himself. He's like, "I've been looking for these keys for 10 minutes. Like, where did you lose these keys?" He said, "Oh, out in the house." He said, "We've been looking out here and you're telling me you lost the keys in the house." He says, "Well, why are you looking out here then?" He says, "Oh, that's easy. There's more light out here."
Okay.
I'll let that one sink in. So because of time, often we go looking outside for what's always been
inside.
And I did this story at a school, and this student was this child was on the floor, and he was like, "But sir, how did the key get in your belly?" So when you're telling your stories, please be very clear when you're telling children your stories. So yeah, but again, going into that dark place sometimes to find
the light.
I love that.
The light is within. Right?
I love that. That's so, that's powerful, seriously.
So tell us, obviously people are going to want to hear more of your stories. We want to hear more. We don't have the time, but those people out there, if they want to check you out and want to find out more about Alim Kamara, the storyteller and hip-hop artist, where can they connect with you?
Please just Google Alim Kamara, that's it. Literally Alim Kamara, and I've posted so much that if you type in Alim Kamara, I'm at the top. So yeah, and I got the .com as well.
You got Google on lock, yeah?
Yes, I have to. I've been doing my utmost to keep up with the whole social media world. It's a lot of work.
It really is. It's a job by itself, isn't it?
It is. But yeah, so anything.
You got two PAs though, remember that?
Yes.
Two PAs.
Two PAs.
That was back home. Here is a different. Yes, I should have bought them. Yes. So yeah, anything, just Google Alim Kamara and things will come up for how to contact me. alimkamara.com.
You know what? I don't want this episode to finish. Really. And he's so handsome as well, right?
Very.
Very. It's quite difficult. Straight face. But anyway, well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And guys, I hope you were blessed. I mean, you know, it was a really blessed episode. I want some more stories.
I want some more stories too.
Yeah.
Story.
Okay, guys, until next time, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and do ensure that you do subscribe to the show and share as well, because sharing is caring. Until next time, peace out. Bye. Ciao.
You are the key. It's only natural. Woman, you are the start. You are the beginning. And then